How to hear the voice of the Lord. Can you really expect to hear His voice in your life? I'm saying yes today. Stay right here. I'll explain. So glad you joined me today. I'm Amy. This is Stick with the Plan. I'm talking about, can you expect to hear God's voice? Yes, you can. I really believe we have to use our faith to hear His voice. I had a friend of mine tell me, Amy, if the Lord's ever spoken to me, I don't think I would have known it. Well, I've got some keys today to help you know His voice, to recognize it, to expect Him to speak to you. Now, recently it was about 2 weeks ago now, it was my son's birthday party, and I was going to pick up his cake, and I noticed my credit card was missing, and I thought, oh, of all the places I'd already been that day, and Lake was turning 18, and we had a fun party for him. But I was trying to buy his cake, and I thought, oh, my credit card's not in my wallet. And I had some other means to pay for it, so I got the cake, but I get in the car, and I cried out to God, and I was like, Lord, help me. Nothing's lost to you, Lord. You show me where that card is. And I just felt in my heart, He had showed me. I'd been to other stores that morning. He showed me exactly where it was. Well, I drove back over. It'd been like an hour had passed, and I just asked the Lord, protect that card, Lord. Don't let anybody pick it up. I knew what parking place I was in because it had a funny marker. Well, someone ran over a hamburger underneath it, so I could tell exactly where I'd parked before. I parked in the same spot. I went up, I walked the sidewalk, I'd walked down a little street. I went back through my steps just like the Lord had shown me, and right there, laying on the sidewalk, was my blue Chase credit card. And I picked it up, and I was so thankful no one had grabbed it or taken it. Like I said, an hour had passed. Anyone could have just walked by, and even a helpful person turned it into, well, there were many stores around there, could have walked in and taken it to one of the cashiers, but it was right where I had dropped it. That could have been a terrible day for me. It could have really ruined Lake's party for me. But the Lord knew exactly where I needed to go, and I had to have the faith. You know what? I hear from heaven. God's going to speak to me. He knows where my card. He's going to show me where it is, and He did. That knowledge or that confidence, it just doesn't come overnight, but you need to go ahead and talk to yourself. Expect to hear His voice. When we were in Bible school, they told us to start saying that, I know Him, I hear Him, I see Him. In John 10, it talks about how He is the good shepherd, and a voice of a stranger we are not to follow. That means you and I as His sheep. He's the good shepherd. When He speaks, the voice of a stranger we wouldn't follow, but we would hear His voice and be quick to obey. My dad always taught us, if you're having trouble hearing the voice of the Lord, go to one of your favorite scriptures and begin to write it down. And if you'll do this, practice this, you'll train your ear on the inside, the ear of your heart, the ear of your spirit, to hear from heaven. My dad would say, write it down. He loved Psalms 23. So, for the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Once you start writing that down, your heart's going to start getting a little extra. You might think, yeah, I should not want for a new job. Thank you, Lord. You got one provided for me. You might write something extra about your family or something. Maybe you need health, and you would redeem my life from destruction. And you're just writing this out, and He starts speaking to you. That means your body. I'm redeeming you from that disease. You get extra little nuggets as the Lord's talking to you through His Word. I love that exercise when you kind of feel lost and you're like, I need to hear from God. Maybe you're like my friend saying, if He's spoken to me, I wouldn't have known it. You might have friends that say, God said this, God said that, and you think, well, He never speaks to me. I want you to train your ear. So when you're even in a mess like I was, maybe you lose something and you need it quickly. The Lord will show you right where it is. And why? Because you're His child. He loves you. He's a communicative God. He wants to speak to you and have you hear His voice and obey Him. I get questions all the time, and I was speaking in youth the other night and at Faith Church, and I was telling the youth, you've got to expect to hear God's voice. It's important from a young age that you know the voice of the Lord. Think about all the questions you had when you're younger. Who should I date? Who should I marry? What college should I go to? What classes should I take? What car should I buy? What job could I have? Where's my girlfriend? I had a group of kids that would ask me all the time, Amy, can you smoke weed and go to heaven? They would ask me that once a week in high school. And I'd be like, look, guys, I don't really think you know Him. Because when you know Him, that's not God's best for you. So I was always trying to point them to hear the voice of the Lord. And so, whatever the question may be, we need in life to know God's voice as soon as possible. I was reading out of 1 Samuel chapter 3, where Samuel is there being trained by Eli in the temple there, and he's a young man. Eli's old, and he says he can't see, and it's at night, and they're sleeping, and Samuel's laying in the bed asleep, and he hears Samuel, and he runs to Eli and says, yes, master, did you call? no, not me. I mean, the old man who could barely see. What, is that you, Samuel? No, it wasn't me. A second time he hears Samuel. He runs in there. Did you need me? Did you need me? And he says, no, it wasn't I didn't say anything. Eli instructs him right there and says, no, it wasn't I, but this time it must be the Lord. When he calls again, tell him that you're listening. And so when Samuel goes back to bed and hears Samuel, again he says, oh, is that you, Lord? It's your servant. Speak, Lord. I'm listening. And he tells him, go ahead, Lord, say whatever you want to. I'm expecting to hear from you. And I just love that so much, that he was so sensitive now that, okay, that's the voice of the Lord. And God was able to give him a vision for his nation. The Lord wants to speak to you today. Now, don't let years of not hearing keep you out of your future of hearing. Start confessing today. I know him, I hear him, I see him, and you'll expect to hear his voice, and he'll be quick to speak to you. And that's all. You'll stick with the plans he has for you. Thanks for joining me today. I love hearing all that God is doing in your life, and thank you for sharing this. New friends are watching this because you are sharing this. If you're on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, leave us a comment. If you're on Facebook, like this page. I have a brand new video for you next week. And remember, every Tuesday we are live. I'll see you then.